What's up, guys? Let's wait a second here and maybe take some time and read the caption so you know what we're dealing with today. Hope that everyone's doing good. This is the time of year where every morning I wake up, I'm excited to check the boxing news globally because as we get closer to New Year's Eve, big fight dates are announced. You get a lot of speculation historically over the years. That's when a lot of big fights will get signed. And it's no different right now as we're heading into October. I want to start off, though, depending on how old you guys are, you might remember the name Dr. J. Yes, this is a boxing channel, but I'm going to talk about Julius Erving in relation to one of our boxers we're going to talk about today. Here's a little story. So Dr. J, Julius Erving, he was the guy who, in terms of the narrative of the NBA in the 70s, a little bit of the 80s, Dr. J was the guy. He was the most athletic superstar of his era. He did things that the fans and the sport at the time didn't see. As Dr. J got up there in age, started, his prime had passed, in comes to the NBA a young Michael Jordan. Now, when Michael Jordan got into the NBA out of the University of North Carolina, the NBA already had its crop of rising young stars. You had Magic Johnson with the Lakers, Isaiah Thomas, you had Larry Bird, you had these rivalries that were already beckoning way past Dr. J's prime. The reason why this is important is because if you remember, the NBA and the narrative of Michael Jordan's first few years, we'll say the first 7 years, a lot of people forget this, it took MJ 7 years not to win a title, but to win a playoff series. It took him that many times losing to get over the hump. There was a thing in the NBA called the Jordan rules in terms of the rule set that the defenses knew that they could play rougher on Jordan, that the refs wouldn't call these fouls, that every time they would play the Bulls, they could double team them and not get called for specific fouls that against other guys they would. And this was a different NBA. This was a bruising NBA. It was a more physical NBA. And then we all know Jordan hits that shot over the Cavs. I was 7 years old, 1989, Richfield Coliseum. He was being guarded by Craig Elo. The Bulls were down by 1. It was a best of 5. And Jordan hits that famous shot. And then he double pumps in the air. And as he raises up, you see Cleveland's fans fall down. It's the first time I cried in front of my dad. I had to go hide under the kitchen table. This is important because that's when Jordan became a star. As Jordan's prime was going, and then you had Kobe, and then this pattern repeats itself. Then Kobe, then LeBron. And the reason why this is important is because we have a pecking order in sports. We have this pecking order that is it's not spoken about in terms of hierarchy of who we allow in our own heads to be the guy. Now, could you guess who I'm leading in to talk about? Devin Haney. I have to talk about Devin Haney, and I think this is what's happening. Let's forget about Bill Haney. Let's forget about the media. Let's forget about what Devin, even you've heard him say, how he speaks or whatever he talks about. When we talk about fighters on this channel, let's talk about and focus and remember they're fighting. How they fight, what their records are, their athleticism, their discipline, and what they show us as fans when they're in the ring. That's what I'm talking about. You can leave all the conjecture for your friends and your mates when you're talking about boxing. I want to talk about the athleticism of the sport and what these fighters mean to us as fans and their legacy on how they perform. Okay, glad we covered that up. Devin Haney just signed to fight in December, Regis Prograis, in Devin's hometown or where he grew up in the Bay Area. DAZN is heralding it as Devin's homecoming. Okay. He is 24 years old, and I wanted to play a little game with you guys in terms of why that's so relevant. Granted, he does turn 25 in November. By the time they fight, him and Regis, he will be 25. But I made a little list. How old do you think Tank Davis is? Is he 24 or 25? Tank Davis is 28 years old. I think some fans like to, that's a whole think about 24, 28. You're a freshman in high school. You're a senior in high school. That's a big gap. They're not the same age. Okay. So how old do you think Ryan Garcia is? Some people still think Ryan's a little kid. Ryan's older than Devin. Ryan's 25. We must remember, Devin's trying to be 2-time undisputed. at 24. Look at his resume. The kid's beat George twice. He's beats Lomachenko. The dude, he's a workhorse. He's a former Olympian. Devin Haney's a stud, and I'm just going to keep proving points to you. Just because you bloodthirsty fans, you want him to go out there and risk his health and livelihood to go for the knockout, don't think these guys can't go for the knockout either. This is a high visceral thinker of a fighter. He's very smart. You can't get to his level in anything that you do without being visceral. So don't call the guy a bum because he's not doing what you want him to do, put his health and his career in danger by going for the knockout. That doesn't mean he's a bum, by the way. Okay, Errol Spence, how old EJ? 24, 25? No, we know. EJ's in his 30s, 33. How old's Bud? All you Bud Crawford fans, I get a lot of heat for covering Bud right now. Bud is the talk of the town. If you guys are going to call me, somebody's commenting I'm on his nuts. Dude, he's a world champion. He's one of these, probably the greatest boxer of his era. If you want to say I'm on his nuts because I'm covering what he does, then I'm on his nuts. I have no problem saying that. I'm going to cover greatness when greatness is in our generation, and we're just fortunate to have Bud. Well, Bud turns 36 tomorrow on September 28th, right? Let's keep this in mind. Haney's 24. Okay, a couple other names, and the list goes on. Regis is 33. How old do you think Teo is? Because for the longest time, Teo was the guy that he was the young marauder. Teo's 26. My point is, you get it. There's this hierarchy. Do you think it'll ever be enough? I think Devin Haney, I mean, his name is already in the lights in the marquee. He has the opportunity to become an all-time great, way past needing to become a household name. There's fighters who, on their quest of wanting to be a household name, had to take risks. And some fighters, it didn't play out for them. Had to take short notice fights. And some fighters, it didn't play out for them. Let's think about Demetrius Andrade. He's in his mid-30s. You know what I'm saying? He's in his mid-30s, still not a household name. So Demetrius, he doesn't have time to play it safe in terms of his career trajectory, right? He needs to make things happen right now. Haney, at 24, has the option, the opportunity, and the ability to carve out this amazing, illustrious career because he's done so much at such a young age. And I think that should be the narrative. But there's no boxing outlets talk about that as the narrative. I want to play you guys the hype video. You guys have probably seen it. We did a video on our channel, the last one. It's up now. It's basically talking about the Haney and Prograis fight, who you got. What I wanted to play for you, though, is I want to get your opinion on what do you make of DAZN. So this is DAZN type video for the Prograis. And a lot of people are talking, you know what? I'm not going to put any ideas in your mouth. I want to hear your opinion.
You can hear me? I gotta step on you. I gotta crush you. You in my way.
I'm breaking you down, bro. I'm gonna break you down. Break your heart and break your will. I'm gonna take everything from you.
It's levels, and I'm at the highest. I'm at the peak.
You're a manufacturer. You're not real. You fake.
Just another night for me. Another victim, another body. I'm gonna fuck you up.
Like I keep saying, I'm gonna keep stressing this over and over, bro. I'm gonna hurt you. Really, you're a little boy to me. Everybody that's there, all your people, bro, they gonna see you get knocked out, and I'm gonna knock you out cold. Fuck boxing. This gonna be a massacre.
Regis, I'm coming for you.
So yeah, the beef on this video is, and this is where I could kind of get and understand some of Devin's haters, is that because he is only 24, sometimes the words that he speaks really aren't backed by a lot of conscious thought. If you look at the comments, DAZN posted this on their Instagram. Everybody liked it. They liked it visually, but they were kind of like, it would be better if there weren't any vocals, no narration. I like what Regis had to say, probably because I love that New Orleans accent. Is there a better accent in America than somebody from New Orleans? Something about it, man. You mix in a world champion prize fighter who's a savage and assassin, and then you give him the New Orleans accent. That, in my opinion, anything Regis says, in my opinion, sounds dope. You know, then again, I grew up listening to Southern rap. You know, Master P, you know, coming up with the Ice Cream Man. That was my stuff being a 90s kid. I like that Southern rap, especially out of New Orleans. But Devin, hearing Devin swear, it doesn't sound right. It doesn't, like, every time I hear Devin try to trash talk, it's kind of like, I mean, he came through, and look, this is no knock. I'm a Haney fan. If you've watched this whole thing, I'm propping Haney up. But here's my beef, and this is my the contrasted hat, the contrarian hat that I wear for his haters is the fact that he comes from the junior Olympics, the Olympic Training Center. He's been trained to do media since he was a young man, a young boy. He never really had to go the route because he was such a great and amazing youth boxer. His upbringing, I don't want to ever call a boxer a young, successful youth boxer. I don't ever want to call their upbringing sort of like fortunate, because it's not. But Haney wasn't living a life, and he didn't have to be on the streets. Boxing for him, he's kind of like that educated. In the 90s, they used to do these movies. There was a movie called The Program. It was about college football. And there was a battle between running backs. One running back was played by Omar Epps. And Epps was a kid who was from the inner streets, got a scholarship to kind of escape the rough neighborhoods he came up with. And the kid that was starting was like, his parents were doctors. He came from a preppy upbringing, and it was just a different thing. And I feel with Devin, when he gets on the mic and tries to play that street character, it's like, you don't have to. You don't have to play the street character. But I'd rather Devin speak. I don't know. I could be wrong. I could kick it with Devin, and he might be as street as he projects it out to be. But I don't feel he has to do that, and I don't think that gives him a one up in any level of life anyway. We can't control where we're born. We can't control, and we don't get to pick who our parents are or whatever struggle we have to overcome to get to where we want to go. But I feel sometimes Devin forces that sort of side, and I think that could be a little bit an angle on why people hate on him. And we'll turn the page on that because we got a long fight camp. It's December. It's in San Francisco. You can watch the hype video. I put it on this page. I want to talk about, we got 3 days. It's Thursday morning here in Sydney. I'm waking up Friday, Saturday, and then the fights in America in Sydney happen on Sunday. 3 days, Charlo, Canelo. On that undercard, we got Carmel Moten. He's facing a 27-year-old 4-0 fighter. That should be a good fight. We'll get to see if the lights and how Carmel handles it. I mean, all in all, I've done multiple features on Carmel over the last year. He seems like the real deal. He seems like those lights aren't going to affect him at all. And I'm excited for the boxing community, if you're unaware who Carmel Moten is, to see this kid fight. His style, but the truth is, part of the pro game is being hit more, and the scoring system's different, and he's gonna have to put himself in riskier positions to score because it's not the amateur scoring system. So that in itself is kind of the learning curve for, if you're unaware of not amateurs going into the professional boxing. That's the learning curve of navigating the scoring system. And then if your fight style is, when you hear people say, oh, he has a professional fight style, that's what they say about Moten, because in the amateurs, he puts himself in positions to get hit. But he has a nice shoulder roll defense. He has a nice Philly shell. I think people are going to be really impressed with this young kid. How is the Charlo and Canelo outcome going to play out? Because the closer it gets to the fight, guys, I'm actually flip-flopping. I could read a segment on Charlo, and I could hear Mike Tyson talking about Charlo and all the benefits that he sees, how Charlo and the outcomes that he could beat Canelo. And I'm like, oh yeah, I think Charlo could beat Canelo. And then I'll go to like Canelo's page and see him training and hear him talk and hear his people in his camp and, Eddie talking about Canelo. I'm like, dude, Canelo is going to wash Charlo. And it's like, I don't know where I stand. When people talk, and the thing is, I don't think it's a 50-50 fight. July 29th, I definitely didn't have a horse in the race. I didn't know where I stood. I did not know how that was going to play out. I didn't pick Bud. I didn't pick EJ. I watched it as a fan. I'm doing the same thing now, and I wonder, with Charlo and Canelo, I wonder how many Bud fans are going to be watching this fight. This is something that we haven't spoken about. Guys, if you're a Bud Crawford fan, who do you want to win this fight? Does Bud want Canelo to win? Or does Bud want Charlo to win? Because the brilliance in Bud Crawford, by him being vocal over the last few weeks in saying that he wanted 168, he removed the element of needing to cheer for one or the other. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think because Charlo got stripped at 54 and that undisputed was removed from the equation at 54, that in a way helped propel Bud to not have a horse in this race. Because if Charlo doesn't get stripped at 54, and he gets knocked out against Canelo and had the opportunity to go back to 54 and be undisputed, Bud would probably want, you know, they sound and come over as two punks playing gangsta. Haney does not want to come over as playing the bully. Yeah, Devin. Yeah, that's spot on about the Haney thing, and it's kind of like, is boxing ready? Is mainstream boxing ready for? Think about how think about the adoration AJ has in the UK or had internationally before he lost, because we're petty. Boxing fans, we're petty bitches, man. You lose one time, boy, we will throw you out to the street. That's it. But if you remember when AJ was undefeated and he got that huge, and I'm sorry if I'm going to pronounce this sponsor wrong, is it Hublot? Hublot? He got this huge sponsor, and he did this commercial, and he speaks. You want to impress an American? Put that classic traditional English accent on TV. This is why all American, sort of like when you watch American late night TV and they're selling you stuff, it's always like this proper English accent. Perhaps it should have been a little bit long. My accent's terrible, but that sort of thing. And AJ has that accent, and people loved him for it. 24 years of bullies laughing in today's world of boxing. Yeah, 20. But where was I at with the Anthony Joshua? I was running. My point with Joshua was the fact that how he spoke. AJ doesn't, when he does interviews, he's adored because he speaks like he's not a bully. He speaks really well, and he's conscious before he sort of responds, whether it's in a normal press conference, a pre-fight, a post-fight. Very respectable. Do we have that in America? And is the culture in America ready for a boxing superstar to play that role? Because it seems like in the lead up, in the think about it historically. I mean, at least in my generation over the last 20 years, it is the fight game. I'm not asking these guys to be, you know, Rhodes Scholars, but I wonder if it's something in the sort of zeitgeist for American boxers, young American boxers coming up, to feel they have to play this sort of badass, not necessarily a heel, but this indestructible character. You know what I'm saying? So it's something that I quite often think about. And as an undefeated fighter, it's much easier to play that role if you've never tasted defeat. And that's why I called it, once again, this Regis and this Devin fight is a crossroads fight. You have a 33-year-old Prograis who has tasted defeat, who wants the shine. Look at Regis's amateur record. This kid, you know, and you have Devin, who has all of it, and who I cannot ever recall hearing Ali, for example, Frazier cursing in interviews. Can you bring it up? That's what I'm saying. And it's, I wonder how much of that are the times changing. You know, we're getting old, and the world is changing, but I think there is space. I think there's room for an assassin, just marauder, to be respectful. You know what I'm saying? I don't know who that would be, but I think the fans would respect that as well. We love killers, though. I mean, people want blood. This is why people who hate on Devin, his fight style, because they say he's not knocking people out. He plays it too safe. I think it's all related. You know what I'm saying? And I think some of the hate with Devin is that people feel that his talk doesn't match his fight, but it shouldn't. You know what I'm saying? So last thing, Espinosa. What is Dana White, Steven Espinosa. We heard the rumors swirling that Showtime is going to step out from boxing. I don't know how. It seems like there's a lot of sort of energy with this rumor, but Dana was speaking about it, and then it forced Steven. And if you guys know anything history of their relationship, this goes back a decade, maybe longer, of them talking trash about each other. But the thing about Dana is he started as a boxer. It was shit. Everybody, I think you might know the story. He had to flee Boston because the mafia and the boxing gyms, he wasn't paying the tax. So he comes over to Vegas, went from a boxing promoter to a fight promoter. This is when he met the Fertitta brothers. This is when he met Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell. And then he got into the UFC and MMA. My point is, boxing was his first love. And he hates on boxing so much. He came out, the UFC did, normally we know Mexican Independence Day. We know that Canelo usually fights on that day. But because the Canelo-Charlo fight was 2 weeks after, the UFC scheduled a big event on that day with Alexa Grasso, who was a Mexican-born champion, taking on Valentina Shevchenko. And then Dana, after that card, said that from here on out, they're going to go up against boxing on Mexican Independence Day and not give a shit what boxer's headlining in Vegas. And this kind of caused, over the last 2 weeks, a lot of shit talk between Espinoza's camp and Dana's camp. But numbers don't lie. And Espinoza, all he did, and I got into this with a client of mine, that he was arguing with the fact, and I've been covering I've watched the very first UFC event. Very first UFC event, November 10th, 1993. I've been watching UFC since then, since jump. I started boxing, though, in 1989 when I was 7. So combat sports, kind of my wheelhouse. Just because I don't cover a lot of MMA on this channel doesn't mean I'm not covering it elsewhere. My point about it is this. I recently had a client of mine arguing with me about how MMA was more popular than boxing. And I was telling him, I was like, you're out of your fucking mind. MMA, the sport of MMA, and UFC, the organization, is still a fringe sport. It's not mainstream. One of the reasons is because it's new. It's young. What other sport in our lifetime that we watched get created? 1993. They've been boxing since... Dana White said it. 2 things man will always do. Fighting and fucking. Evolutionarily speaking, pardon my language, it's how we've evolved. Fighting and then procreating. So boxing, much more... It'll always be bigger. And Espinoza put these stats out, and I shared it in our community tab on this channel, and it's also in our Facebook group. He said since, I'm probably going to butcher this, but he goes, let me pull it up. He goes, since, here it is. These two never play nice. Go to the community tab. Since July, or since May, boxing and Showbox, Espinoza, they've done 2 shows. Okay, here it is. In 6 months. Okay. The UFC has never done a $20 million gate ever. So since 93, never done a $20 million gate. And this was Espinoza's response to Dana White chatting shit. Espinoza said, you guys have never done a 20 million gate. What are you talking about? Boxing is dead. He was like, in the last 6 months, Charlo Canelo will be our 3rd $20 million gate. And on that note, it's like, mic drop. Guys, we'll talk about Richardson Hitchens in a second. I got to run now. But guys, I appreciate you. If you're still hanging in there 23 minutes in, man, hit the like button. We need to grow this. I'm not going anywhere. If you wanted me to talk about anything, let me know. I appreciate your support. Share it. And any advice or any feedback, I appreciate you. Let's go. Bang, get after it.